being invited to MIT Media Forum is terrifying. I have to tell you that as I was sitting in the audience listening to all these incredibly bright people, I had a moment of panic. And I thought, oh my God, what if no one here has ever heard of Blurb? And right as I'm thinking that, my seatmate here that I just met, Frederick from SAP, leans over and he says, by the way, I want to introduce myself because I'm a huge fan. And I've been a customer since like 2007. So the question for any of you in the audience is, how many of you have ever even heard of Blurb? Well, that's even more than I thought. That's awesome. Okay, so what I'm going to talk about today is a little bit about who we are. I will talk a little bit about my backstory. And I want to really share with you what we do as a way to describe the learnings we've had along the way. Because we started in 2006 before there really was an EPUB, certainly not an EPUB 3 standard, before there really was social media and social communities, which are now amplifying distribution, and before things that we know now as agile development were really in place. And over the years, we've learned a lot, so I thought I would share some of those things with you. Okay, so the first thing is I do want to tell you my story. So I am a serial entrepreneur. This is my third VC-backed company in Silicon Valley. And here's how it goes. After the 1.0 bust, some of you look like people who may have lived through that. Yes, and I sold my second company. My first company was a company called Personify. It was behavioral segmentation and marketing analytics. My second company was Verb. It was a context search engine. And I sold both of these companies right after the bubble burst. And no, I don't have the villa in the south of France. I am still working. But you know what? After I sold that second company, I had a really profound insight, and that was, in a former life, I was a photographer and I worked for Eastman Kodak Company. And I needed a creative, cathartic moment. I needed to go back and do something creative. And so I got back into photography, which is really the birth of this company. And for those of you who are moving between jobs and functions, I actually encourage you to take a moment to think about what matters to you. Because through photography, I ended up with building a brand new company. Here's how it went. I started photographing entrepreneurs that I'd built companies with. And one by one, I'd email them and say, would you agree to spend a day with me? And we'd go out together and I'd take their photograph. And this was like medium format, film-based work. I used to work as a photographer, so it was like a day, right? And along the way, they would tell me their stories. And here's what I learned, 2 things. Number 1, shame on me for not knowing these people better when we worked together. Number 2, their stories were more interesting than the photographs I was taking. Number 3, this was not, in fact, a personal project. This was a community project, and somehow or other, holy crap, I needed to figure out a way to share this with all of these people. So my first thing was, okay, how do I do that? I needed 40 books. So I started to look into the printing and publishing arena. Now, this was not a book of commerce. These were the unknown people, right? This wasn't Steve Jobs. In fact, I talked to a literary agent because I didn't know, how do you get a book done? By the way, how many of you in the audience have authored a book? Yeah, okay. So I wanted to be like you, right? I had no idea how, I don't want to be like you? Okay. No, I want to be like you as you would be today if you used our platform. Okay, but what I found was I needed 40 copies for these people, and I talked to a literary agent, and you know what she said to me? She went to New York, she came back, she said, they really liked your work, but could you change all the participants? How about Steve Jobs? Could you go call him Bill Gates? It'd be like if you were writing a novel and you'd finished it and somebody came to you and said, I think you need a different love interest. It's like, what is up with that? So I thought, well, no, I'm not going to photograph Steve Jobs. That's not the point of this book. And by the way, this book isn't even going to be for sale. I'm going to give it to these people. Well, I might as well have, put popcorn on my head or something. I mean, people were like, well, then why is it a book? And I thought, because it's a book. It's going to be beautiful. It's going to be awesome. I need 40 copies. And what I realized was to get this done, I was running into the offset problem of the minimum print run. You know, it was going to cost me 10 grand and probably 6 months of my time. And I thought, you know, these were really great people and they were great friends, but, you know, $10,000, not so much, right? So I wandered around seriously every month. I kept, because I was doing some other work, and every couple of weeks I'd look online for, like, there must be a way to do this. Come on, desktop publishing, hello, meets e-com backends. I built them, right? Hello. And digital printing. I was doing that at home out of Photoshop. And so I thought, there's a company here, let me go figure this out. Here's the lesson I learned. I always think when you start a company, this is my third one, that there's one pivotal question around, is this not just a fun thing to do, but is this a business? Is this a business? And the question for me was, or for us, became, could we make money on a book of one? What if you could produce a title and only one unit ever sold? Because if you could do that, you could transform the entire publishing industry. And from that one question, several people have talked today about asking the question, asking the unorthodox question. And my question was, I would rather have 100,000 people, each of whom made one book and bought one copy, than one person who made 100,000 unit sale. Because every one of those 100,000 people in the world would tell everyone they'd ever met about the book that they had just created because they're so proud of it. And so we had to reverse engineer back from that into, well, how could we make that possible? Okay, a few data points, because I figured no one here would know about us. So we're headquartered in San Francisco. We have an office in London, about 125 people. We launched in 2006. We've taken really a pitifully small amount of money. The reason for that is we've become profitable because, shockingly, people still expect to pay money for books. Just saying, okay. And that's why we're approaching $100 million in revenue this year. We're profitable. We have 3 million authors globally. Our peak volume, we'll see a new title come over our servers every 2.1 seconds. And we output to both print and digital. So that's the story. Okay. I want to talk for a minute about Steven Soderbergh. I promise this is the last name drop. In fact, he's the only famous person I know. So Steven Soderbergh tweeted his novella. So I'm following his tweets, and one day one of the guys in my office says, oh, you got to follow, have you following Steven Soderbergh? I'm like, yes. He said, you got to follow this one through. So I follow it through, and he's announced that he's published his graphic novel, this novella, on Blurb. And I thought I'd died and gone to heaven. And privacy aside, I stalked him. So I actually ended up meeting him in New York for drinks. He's awesome, by the way. He's really approachable. And here's what he told me. I said, look, you're you. Come on. You could pick up the phone. Rizzoli, Taschen, Knopf, whomever, they're all going to do your book. What was it about this? And here's what he said. And by the way, this is not just our platform. This could be another publishing platform. This is a generalized comment. Number one, creative control. Number one, creative control. Number two, rights management. So rights ownership. He did not want to hassle with a publisher about who's going to own the film rights to his movie, because he's Steven Soderbergh, okay, or the plush toy or the video game or whatever, right? So rights management, number two. Number three, speed. He was between projects. He was doing a play at the Public Theater, and he's got a new, for those of you who watch cable, anyone here still watches TV, on cable TV, he's got a new series opening up, I think, next week, like a Netflix kind of thing. So he had like a 3-week period of time, 3 weeks, people, where he's going to produce this book, right? So he did it. Number four was related to speed, and that was no meetings. And number five was it was super fun. So for all of those reasons, he made this book. What's going to happen next, and this is really interesting because this is where the social media aspect comes in that is now available. Because he has this huge Twitter following, we're going to do a campaign behind. This was his idea. And he's going to do a Willy Wonka. Any of you seen Any of the, okay. Remember the golden tickets? You know, award the bearer. So we're going to drop a limited edition run, because now you can, on a date certain. And he's going to do the film trailer for it because, you know, he's him. And in 5 of the 750 books, there will be golden tickets that award the bearer to go on set with Steven Soderbergh at his next production. And that's what's going to happen. So that's really cool. He's now doing book number 2 with us. He's coming into San Francisco because his next book is about how he learned how to become a filmmaker. And he's dissecting Jaws frame by frame, because his friend is Steven Spielberg. And he is educating film students on how he thinks about every film shot in the movie through an ebook, a rich media ebook that we're going to do together. This is the way we learn how to build products. We meet up with people and we get them in and we say, what is the most remarkable thing you'd like to do? And then we figure out something less than remarkable that we can actually do to get started, and that's what we do. Okay, everything in our world starts with the author. We have creative tools. I heard John Hagel talk earlier about, you know, in fact, I wrote them down because I should just follow you around, John, because you talked about the 3 levels of pull, and I think our whole platform's a pull platform. I'm gonna, with your permission. Okay, so Access, this is about tools, having tools that will enable you to create. Output to both print and digital, we do all these forms. We have a bookstore, but it's not really a bookstore because it's not really a destination. What the bookstore is the manifestation of the community of people around the world who have made books. And oh, by the way, you can transact there, but it's not a retail location. It's an interesting mix. We have distribution as well. You can distribute to all these places. All right, I'm going to talk on now about some things that we're building out. So the things in blue are things we're building. One of the things we've heard from folks is, you know, I'm an architect. By the way, I don't want to offend, any architects in the room? Okay, good. Architects think they're book designers. Really bad, because their fonts are 4-point. And it's all grayed out, and you can't read it. So, you know, the classic architect thinks I've got this wonderful content, I'm going to make this book about my firm, the work that I'm doing, my seminal projects, and it's fabulous, except it's unreadable. They need a book designer. So one of the things we have struggled with is, how do we do this? We're a technology company. We did not want to become a consulting services company. We did not want to become a publisher. We're not a publisher. We don't want to have editorial control. We want you to have that. What do we do? So we're now building out a community of talent. These are all vetted talent, because in the world of abundance, the filter is the value, right? The filter is the value in a world of abundance. And so it's, in our world, it's not about having 3,000 people in this network who can do editorial development work, copy edits, et cetera. It's about the 400 who have expertise that's relevant to the authors that we have. So we're building that out. By the way, in our world also, it's about, we're not going to take any piece of this. This is, we're matching people up through some algorithms, but we're not making money here, because we make money when the title gets completed and when you are delighted with it. You are so delighted with it and you are so proud of it that you're tweeting that thing out, you're putting it on your Facebook, you're putting it on your blog, and all of your friends are happy to talk about your book as well. So quality matters. Okay, next is author development, and finally is audience development. I'm going to go into the next slide here because I think these things are universal. So in the world of creation of books, you're either making a book, you're selling a book, or you're marketing a book. And under creation, we talked about tools and talent pool. Also, assets. You may want to buy some stock photography from Getty to illustrate your cookbook, for instance. The author financing piece in Sell is very important. This is the other thing we heard. When we started out, we were very illustrated, beautiful books. Those are expensive to produce. And so the question was, I can't make any money on my beautiful cookbook, right? True. In a POD, print-on-demand unit of 1, that's very difficult. Since we started, there's Kickstarter. The number of books that get funded on Kickstarter and come through Blurb is astonishing. So that's number one. The second, though, is we're working with some PayPal guys, ex-PayPal guys, who are building out a financing platform. Think of it as bill me later for authors. So maybe you want to do a print run that costs $8,000, but it will get your unit cost from $25 down to $6. Okay, we're working with a guy in Sydney right now who's a TEDx guy, and he's doing a book. He's going to do a run of 10,000. If we had done that print on demand, a single copy would have been about $32. For 10,000 through us, his unit cost, $1.90. Now, still to run 10,000 times $2, it's still a lot of money, right? So how can we help authors finance the run so that they can afford to do the book and generate more profit? Okay, and then over here, this is all about community engagement. This is the next area that we're really focusing in on, and that is around reviews, social connections, etc. Okay, I thought I would talk a couple things about some of the challenges we faced. The first one is we're still going through this, and we don't have it all together yet. And that is that in our early days, we were very focused on people making books, largely for personal reasons as a gift to give to friends and family. And now we're working very much in the world of self-publishing, which is all about people you don't know. So Group A was making books for you and people you know. Group B is for people you don't know. The challenge is actually culturally, internally. We had a lot of people in the company who were very attached to number one, the first part of that, because they understand it. Because every one of those people could make that kind of book and give it to their mother, who would cry when she received it, right? It was so emotional, right? And so what I have learned through this, and what we have learned through this, that you can communicate all you want. You can talk about the strategy and the goals and all of that stuff. You know what? It doesn't mean anything, because the first thing here is you have to appreciate the emotional attachment to the old, and at the end of the day, what it matters to those people is what does the change mean for them personally and their job. And until you can figure out how to address those things, just talking about your strategy is never going to get you there. So what we're doing, we've instituted scrappy goals. So it's this notion of outside your job. You guys have read Daniel Pink, Autonomy, Mastery, and Purpose. So this is all about those things. Give me your list of scrappy goals that you want to do. It's something outside of your normal job, right, that you're going to do to move things forward. And it has been astonishing, because that's the way to get people emotionally attached to the future. And the next is in terms of actual metrics, get people aligned in what they're doing so that they participate in the success of the business. Okay, challenge number two, our offerings have just exponentially expanded. I mean, we do offset, we do Hong Kong, we do ebook, we do iBook, we do Kindle, we do Amazon, we do Ingram, we do holy crap, right? And we need to have a whole new website. So what are we going to do about that? Because there are a lot of decisions now that are really tough to present to people. Somebody else mentioned this earlier about how do you communicate those tough choices when you're in a platform world? It is complex. What do you do? So some of the things we're working on are decision trees to remove complexity from the people who just want to make the friends and family book and present that richness to only those people who've already raised their hands in some way. This is a real UX challenge. This is sort of one of the diagrams we build internally to help us think through the problem. So who's the book for? It's either people you know or people you don't know. If people you know, good, happy, done, right? People you don't know, okay, there's two big choices here. Are you looking to maximize profit, or is somehow the actual physical construction and materiality of the book the most important element? And based on your choice there, you're going to be driven down very different paths. And we can't screw it up, because if beauty of the book is the most important, and we drove you over here, which is through Ingram, and there's only 3 trim sizes available and 1 paper type, you're not going to be happy. So we have to get this right. I don't claim we we have all this right yet, but it's a real challenge. The more complexity that you offer in a platform, the tougher the UX and UI and visual design work becomes. Okay, in the traditional publishing world, this is what the relationships look like. The author to publisher, publisher to retailer, retailer to fans. Notice the loop back is not connecting all the way through, either from author to fans or from fans back to author. What a tragedy. Those are your people, right? Those are your people. So in the Blurbiverse, we're looking to mash those two things together as best we can. There are a number of ways that we're doing this. One is collaboration. So again, Mr. Hagel talked about mobilization. And I think we're definitely aggregating, we're giving access to tools, social, all of the social ways to connect, but mobilization is really interesting because how can we enable people to put work out, get feedback, iterate, and have the community comment back and back and back? Two great things happen. You make a better book, and you're building your audience along the way for the book, right? So that's where we're going. We really do believe that books actually enable connections, person to person. That's sort of a central theme in the company. A book shouldn't live out in the world. A book has an impact on the receiver, on the reader. And if we can make that connection from reader back to author, and from fan to fan, and author to author, that's a really happy place. Okay, so my final is, it's about where, it's about your ideas, and hopefully we are gonna help you make great books. At the end of the day, when I started this company, I wandered around at the beginning as I learned about how traditional publishing worked, and I sounded like John McEnroe. Which is, you cannot be serious. I mean, seriously, because I'm a technology, you know, I've run software companies. I'm like, let me see, it's like, publishers are like VC for authors, right? They take all the risk, and it's portfolio theory, and they hope like hell that in there's a John Grisham, because the rest will not sell through. And then what happens is, increasingly, as the publishing industry has gotten all those pressures, those market pressures, it's becoming more and more a hit-driven business. And so, unless we all want to live in a world where John Grisham is the only thing we can read in books, this kind of thing, these kinds of platforms that enable open environments for people to publish and get their work out there and make it better is really the way it's going to happen, because I am personally a lover of books. I do not want books to go away in physical form or digital form. I read voraciously, as I suspect everyone in this room feels the same way. So we're on a mission to make sure that books, whether it's for the little girl who's reading her book like this, or whether it's me reading a book like this, and I do both, that those are here to stay. Okay, open for questions. Yeah. Gentleman in the back.
This is very interesting. I'm just wondering, how are you as a platform owner connecting your user base or community to other platforms? For example, are you thinking about getting the book translated through Duolingo or that sort of thing?
Yeah, well, you know, I'm all over that, right? Not yet, but coming soon. You know why? Children's books. Children's books on average have 300 to 500 words. And if you make that children's book in English, why shouldn't that be available in 90 bajillion languages in real time? Totally. So very interesting. With respect to connecting to other platforms, you guys know Goodreads. So for instance, reviews of Blur books happen on Goodreads now. Kirkus reviews. So a number of things like that we're trying to connect up to other platforms. I mentioned Getty, stock photography. You need some better images of lasagna than the one you took, which looks glutinous and horrible. You know, you can pull images from Getty. That would be another example.
Overdrive.
Yeah.
I think Overdrive is a beautiful linkage for platform, because people who love books are always taking them out digitally from libraries.
Yeah.
You know, I belong to 2 libraries, Boston Public and my local library. And so why not extend that into being able to download them and buy them from your site? You're just...
See,
And Overdrive is linking to almost every library in the United States.
my product team will be like, oh, you came back with more things for us to do. What a good idea. Actually, that's a great idea. I love that. Yeah.
So I have a short question for you. Because Apple is also trying to help authors publish, and Amazon claims to be helping authors publish, and we're looking at what's hachette with Amazon and Hachette these days.
Yeah.
How is Burb going to compete with Amazon?
Well, our stated goal, in fact, is to be the alternative platform to Amazon. Because Amazon, in that last picture I showed with the connectivity back from author to reader and social, okay, Amazon wants to own the relationship with you. Amazon wants to, and by the way, brilliant business model. Amazon then, after you've bought that book, wants to sell you a bag of dog food. No, I'm not. You know this, right? I mean, I'm in. I'm in too, right? So they are not motivated to create a community at all, and in fact, quite the opposite, because they want to own that relationship. We think that as we're going forward here, that those connections between people, between makers, sharers, and that community are critical, and that there will be a place where people will want to congregate, make books, share books, and get the word out about their books. I'll make one other specific comment. It's a little bit of a blurb-specific thing, but you'll get the idea. So when you make a book with us, you get for free a widget. It's look inside the book, right? It's your book. It's a personal storefront. And so however many books you've made, you get your personal storefront. You can display that on your site, but here's what's better. On every one of your friends, they can put it on their Facebook page, their blog page, on everybody's site. So you start building a community where you are building in built-in distribution of like-minded souls. So forget people who bought this, also saw that. How about people you know who saw this and feel so strongly about your book that they're representing it on their blog? That's the win. It's community. Yeah. Yeah. It's easy because you got the mic right there.
Yeah.
Then we'll go more.
Congratulations on your success so far.
Thank you.
It sounds like the problem you have now is that you're missing another side to your market, which is developers. So my question is, why are you trying to solve a delivering user experience to multiple segments problem by doing all of the user interaction, user experience design by yourself?
We don't do all the user interaction and user experience design by ourselves is the short answer. So we have a team internally, but we work with external people all the time. In fact, right now on our whole website design, we're working with a third party to help us build it.
Still your website, you're just outsourcing the work.
That's true.
Creating incentives for another side of the platform to go and experiment with different user experiences.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, no, that's a good idea. You know what? This brings up a really interesting problem for people like us. When you have a platform, there are so many places to go, and it's always a question of prioritization, because our chief product officer, by the way, we have many women executives in our company, go figure. So Donna is brilliant at sequencing things. She's really good at taking the idea and working it back and saying, okay, if that's where we want to get to, here's where you have to start today, and that's going to be a 12-month journey. So, but all of that openness is all where we're headed. Yeah. Let me come to you got your turn already. That gentleman in blue shirt.
Do you see a transition between readers to writers and writers to readers, and is it a major engine of Blurb?
Yes, 1,000 times, yes, we already see that. The people in the talent pool who provide editorial, guess what? They're writers. So they provide editorial services to somebody else, and then they in turn write their book, et cetera. So in this collaborative environment where it becomes, Yes, you become each side of that is what ends up happening. Readers are becoming writers. And writers are becoming, well, writers have always been readers. Yeah. It's going the other way. Yeah.
Are you seeing private communities around books, or are most of the authors leveraging Facebook and other public communities?
So far, it's the big ones. It's Facebook and other big communities because they're going after awareness. But I think that there are some sectors. As you guys know, writers' associations are huge, right? So within, like, there's the National Children's Book Illustrator and Writers Society, like, whatever that acronym. Within that community, children's book is huge at Blurb. There's a whole sub-community within that community that's all about Blurb, or Blurb books. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm working with the headmaster of the school, and we're looking at Evernote and other ways for kids to collect their work and have reflective learning and things of that nature. We're coming up with this idea of portrait of a graduate. And I'm thinking of your work as kids could take their work and then synthesize it to demonstrate what they've done over a period of years. Have you worked at all with kids?
Yes, all the way from third graders to do exactly that, all the way up to, there are many design schools in the United States whose now all the graduate thesis work are produced in Blurb books. So it's the not just the ta-da, but the process of, the making of in the background. Small subroutine on that one, and then I'm off. Okay, so this is really a personally great story. So my niece, Allie, is one of these kids who's really bright. And she's like more than a little ADD. So she doesn't test well, but she's really bright. She'd been writing poetry since she was young, since she was, in third grade, and now she's in 6th grade, right? So she was young, and her mom, my sister, has been keeping all these poems. And so she was supposed to get into the Gates program, Bill Gates, the Accelerated Learning Program. This is up in Seattle. And she shows up for 6th grade, and she's not in the class. And my sister is like, what's up with that? So she goes into the school and says, you don't understand, this kid will be like bored out of her mind if you put her in the normal class. And the teacher's like, well, we're running out of space. So Catherine talks to her and she says, but she's really bright. And the teacher says, what can she do? Cass says, I'll be back, because we had just produced a book of her poems. And I made her type them and choose her font for the poems. And I literally had her at my house. She made the book. I showed her what to do, and kid-like, she's, on it, right? I'm in the shower. I come out, it's done, right? And this book is awesome. And I gave her mom and her a few copies. Catherine rolls into the school with the book in the manila folder, gets an email that night, and answer is, Allie's delighted to be in the new class.